Bernie Sanders says U.S. should confiscate 100% of any money Americans make above $999 m. They can survive just fine. What do you think? So maybe someone can try to explain this a bit. Would this apply to the value of the company stock? Because to my knowledge, most of the people in this category don't actually take home $1 billion plus in cash into their checking. They twist the words, taxed at 100%, from a quote that he didn't actually say. Simply put, this is false information. Are you essentially arguing that the government should seize the remaining funds until you reach $999 million? Matthews turned to the independent U.S. Senator from Vermont who also caucuses with Democrats and helped them win a narrow majority in the upper house of Congress. Yes, Sanders affirmed. You may disagree with me, but that's okay. I believe people can survive on $999 million. They can survive perfectly fine, in my opinion. He hasn't even called for or proposed a tax. He's merely responding with a shrug to the interviewers. Ridiculous assertion. Almost no one on the planet reports having $1 billion annual income. This is all contained in multiple assets. Bernie merely shrugged off a crude and perhaps laden remark, and now everyone is working up a fuss about how Bernie wants a 100% tax. He hasn't actually said that. His policy, perspective, or the viewpoint he expresses in that interview, is a return to tax rates as they were under Eisenhower. Which is entirely logical. Bernie did not say that. The interviewer said that. Bernie shrugged, edited for clarity. Why is a Chris Wallace quote being attributed to Bernie Sanders? The entire tax system needs to be revamped. The middle class pays more of a burden than the billionaires do. It's ridiculous. Of course, that is just a political slogan by Bernie, and it is not the practical implementation of the idea. But they do need to apply taxes to the giant global megacorporations in an effective way. We know from the Panama Papers how extremely common it is for any wealthy people to hide their money from income taxes, and you don't have to be super rich to do this. So the solution needs to be on how the very wealthy interact with society in the USA, with taxes on land, with a generous lower limit exemption, and on consumption. Taxes on your second yacht should be pretty high. And hey, as a fun idea, how about if the super wealthy contributes a huge amount to politics, or super PAC, then they have to match it with a tax payment. If they take a SCOT US justice on lavish million-dollar vacations, they match that with a tax payment, etc. Confiscate is certainly a choice of words. What's the dumbest thing you've done in your 20s? Not look after my teeth. Went to Italy and forget to eat pizza. Everyone wants to hear about dumb stuff like driving 8 hours to get with someone you liked only for it to end up being a booty call. However, I personally think it was my general lack of effort to build any good habits like exercise. Your body likes routines, and my routine of gaming for 15 hours a day was not one I should have cultivated. Drank my way through my entire 20s. After 25 it wasn't really fun anymore, but that didn't stop me. Drank for another 5 years. My 20s are a total blur splattered with some fun times here and there. But mostly just me running away from things with alcohol. Almost 17 years later and not one drop. My 30s and 40s are exceptional better. Fell into a debilitating drug addiction. I have 26 months sober on the 5th. I wanted to say so many things, but I read someone forgot to eat pizza in Italy. All of a sudden my dumbest thing wasn't so dumb, it even cured my depression. Thanks for all the upvotes and awards, guys. Got into a half-hearted relationship and wasted 3 years of my life. Not making long or medium-term plans, EDIT, wasn't expecting this many upvotes for a throwaway comment. There's no one right way to do life. Just don't be a aunt. While I'm here, UCK Vladimir Putin. Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava. Assumed climbing the corporate ladder is the way to life. I took powerlifting way too seriously. I spent 7 years in gyms, for hours every day, skipping every social occasion and holiday. I didn't get as strong as I wanted to. I just got all sorts of physical issues to deal with for the rest of my life now. Drove 187 miles to drop her a scarf back that she left at my student house, didn't even get a thanks. Just an Instagram story of her wearing the scarf out that night. Decided against contributing to my company's matching 401k. Cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, equals not getting help for my depression sooner. Spent the entire first half of my 20s in the darkest place I can imagine, and all I needed to feel better was some meds once a day. Broke a window with my forehead. Willingly. Don't ask. Worked way too hard and burnt out. Sacrifice said family time. Sacrificed health. Need to pace yourself at the age of 20 to 30. I was hopelessly addicted to heroin. That led to loads of shenanigans. Robbing summer rentals in the winter was probably the worst of it. I was eventually caught and served time. 14 years clean and living an extremely normal life now. Got married to the wrong woman. Never get married to someone who isn't sure if they love you. That person is damaged and needs space. When did you realize that you're dating an idiot? Preheats the microwave. The night I said that I thought I smelled gas, and they grabbed a lighter and struck it without hesitation. She refused to pay taxes, have a bank account, or pay for public transit. She told me, I change my name every few years so they can't find me. Like, she'd go to the government and change her name. Legally. So the government couldn't find her. We broke up for other reasons, but this was the first red flag. She kept stating the big revelation of her story with Lord and behold, instead of lo and behold. I told her she was using the wrong word, but I wasn't idiot because you behold the Lord. Anyways, Lord and behold, she ucked 5 other dudes, so we're on a more than temporary break. My wife would bring stuff home that said, refrigerate after opening, open it, and put it in the refrigerator. Heart. When kids egged his car and he thought the best way to get the egg off was to use steel wool. She didn't know that yogurt and pudding were not the same thing. She thought it was like how the British call fries, chips. She had been eating pudding and granola for breakfast for months and congratulating herself for being so healthy. She also baked baby Jesus a birthday cake on Christmas, lit a candle and took it outside. When the wind blew the candle out, she was convinced it Jesus that blew it out. We were talking about dinosaurs and he was shocked to hear they were real. Then he proceeded to ask me if they really breathed fire. He thought dinosaurs and dragons were the same thing. My ex wanted to start a business making supplies for baby showers. Her business plan was to sell everything below cost to increase sales. After Ehud explained numerous times that you cannot profit from a business that will inevitably lose money, her reply was that I was the idiot because if she sold them cheap it would drum up more business and she would sell more that way. One day they looked at me and said, we should make a trip to New York. I said I think that would be fun, but we really don't have the money to fly there right now. It's not that far. We lived in Portland, Oregon at the time. New York is next to Canada, and Canada is just past Washington. It can't be that far away. Where does the sun go at night? I was dumbfounded. She told me Apple Music was bullshit because it only had covers of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata and not the original. When she asked me, have you ever had your hair set in fire, and then lit my hair on fire? We done. He had a tattoo that said, diabetic, on his right wrist. I thought it was so if something happened, Ems knew. Nope. It was so whenever he went to Eid would remember he was diabetic. She hasn't noticed yet. I asked my ex-girlfriend to marry me. She said, yes. That was when I knew. Married 25 years now. What a beautiful dope she is. He could not find our country on Europe's map. The countries were written in bold, and the capitals too. She got thrown out from a bar and nearly arrested because another woman complimented my shirt and she was convinced that meant she wanted to bang me. Doing a fun fact about me, icebreaker in a group, and his was I've never read a book. She didn't understand that you actually have to pay what you spent on credit cards. Like the credit amount she had was supposed to be her monthly limit that just one resets one each month. To men who have gotten a vasectomy, do you regret it and how has it changed your life? I just want to add a warning from a friend of mine who had it done. He had the operation and went home to recover for a few days. Unfortunately, he had not foreseen that he wouldn't be able to set up the new PlayStation he'd bought himself as a reward. He didn't feel up to all the awkward bending and ucking around behind the TV. Instead, he had to sit there on the couch for days wishing he was playing it. So, a careful warning to anyone else reading this: plug your self-reward PlayStation in before you have the operation and not after. Learn from his mistake. Experiences vary greatly. Some men don't see a change in anything, but others notice a vast difference. I got mine. No regrets. Ex-life vastly improved. Just make sure you get a sperm count post-op. I was told that after a vasectomy I wouldn't have kids anymore, but when I got home they were still there. Vasectomy and LASIK, the best 2 procedures I've had done. Highly recommend. Now I can see what the UCK I'm doing. I'm 30 with 3 kids, got a vasectomy earlier this year. Wife almost died in childbirth for the stone. Can't risk that again. No regrets. I got a vasectomy years ago when my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, didn't really care for condoms, and knew she didn't want to have any more children. Me, I never wanted kids of my own. It was an easy decision for me, and I haven't regretted it for a single second. It also hasn't affected my life in the slightest, aside from 3 or 4 days it took to recover from having a pretty sore scrotum after the procedure. Edit. Wow, many more responses than I expected. And a lot of similar questions. For the major questions, recovery, I honestly don't remember it. It was over 12 years ago now, and although I'm sure I was sore for a few days, I can't recall any complications. I'm sure I stayed in bed, watched movies, and had an ice pack between my legs. There may have been some discoloration, but everything returned to normal pretty quickly. Procedure, I opted for the non-scalpel version. I remember that there was an injection to numb the area, but I don't know what happened after that. I was awake the whole time, but my view was blocked, and if it hadn't been, I wouldn't have looked anyway. My understanding is that the doctor inserted a kind of needle that expands a hole in the skin large enough to do their work. My girlfriend held my hand the whole time. Insurance. I wish I remembered whether or not my insurance covered the procedure, but it was so long ago. And at the time, I was in a little better of a financial position than I am now, so I wouldn't have minded paying out of pocket. 12 years ago was a different time than now. If you're really curious, you can always call your insurance provider and ask them if your plan covers vasectomies. Results. This is one that I'm surprised more people aren't informed about, and I'm glad people are asking. So here's the deal. Literally nothing has changed except that fact that I can't get someone pregnant. A vasectomy simply removes sperm from the equation. It's like removing one pretty insignificant ingredient from a recipe. There are still RGASMS, and they are the same as before. There is still MN, and it looks, feels, arrives, and behaves the same as before, in the same amounts as there was before. And, it's worth saying, I can still receive and transmit an STI just like before. I haven't, but that's because I'm in a monogamous, fluid-bonded relationship. Get yourself tested regularly with each new partner. Condoms are still your best option for avoiding STIs. I hope that's helpful for anyone considering a vasectomy. No regrets. Had it done after our 3rd child was born. We definitely couldn't cope with a 4th child, and my wife was told sternly that she should not have another. It hasn't changed my life. It has helped my wife in that she no longer takes birth control. Interesting that some other commenters in this thread have had life-changing situations where they went for reversal. The health worker tried to talk me out of the vasectomy, saying I was very young. I was 35. She kept coming up with these scenarios in which I might want to have more children. I would reply, I still have 3 children. I never regretted it for a second. The biggest change I found was a significant increase in my enjoyment of X. I never realized how much stress about unwanted pregnancy I was carrying until it was gone. I wish I'd done it sooner, like 13 years old.